Well, in the second topic, we're going to talk about what we have to set up in this world in order to cope with the fact that God is no longer part of our life. We've pushed God into the background. And when we do that, we have a sense of being unattached, of incomplete, of a loneliness, of a lack of love, because we have removed the sense and the awareness of the one who loves us, our Creator. And so we now have to create something that makes us feel complete, valued, a treasure, because we're not feeling it from ourselves. It can't be that we can feel it by ourselves. And so one of the things that we do in this world is we choose to look for a companion, we choose to look for a spouse. And when we do so, it's because we have to meet that feeling of loneliness, of aloneness. I know that that feeling, when I ever experience it, is a killing one for me. That whenever I walk away from God and I'm thinking without God and I'm into the human state is either making me feel inadequate, inept, uneasy, alone, without a place to be grounded. And only when I feel that is it going to push me to have to do something about it. And so we, in our own desire to make a different creation than God, create ourselves as bodies, male and female. God creates us as souls. God creates us as eternal beings. But we, in order to have a different creation, because that's what we're doing, in order to become the big cheese, we have created a creation in which we are now bodies, and our bodies are male and female. Why? Because what we're trying to do is get a feeling of belongingness. Well, what's the feeling of belongingness now within the human state? The necessary prescription for our loneliness, for our aloneness, now surfaces. And we must be able to deal with that. And so we look outside of ourselves for the missing element of not belonging, no place to set our head, no place to live from, except that we only have a choice of something external to ourselves. And very cleverly, we set up a neediness, that man and women are incomplete when they don't have each other in order to accommodate this feeling of aloneness. And so we do it. Well, what's the quality of it? If I need somebody else to make me feel good, which is the essence, I got to deal with this kind of feeling. It's an awful, awful feeling of to walk around with this feeling of not belonging to anything. You're a nothing. You don't belong to anything and you don't feel good about yourself. You're a nothing. It's an awful feeling when you walk around with that. And so we are going to demand of this partner, spouse if you wish, however you want to look at the term of partner, we are going to demand of our partner that they make us feel good. Do you love me? Oh, sure I love you, sweetie. Of course I do. And do you love me? Oh, of course I do. Well, alrighty. Love me. No. You go first and love me. You go first and love me. Because the primary thing is to knock out my feeling of wanting to feel complete, having somebody reliable and dependable. Well, how do you do that in a state of slavery? Because if you demand of the other person to become your servant, you are describing not a servanthood, but you're describing slavery. that the other person must live, must crush down everything that they feel from this unnatural kind of circumstance in order to make us feel good. Well, I lived that kind of thing out in my marriage, that indeed I wanted my wife, to be able to make me feel good. And the both of us get married at 26, and we're now going to spend for 50 years struggling with that kind of feeling, and to be able to turn it around to not making ourselves feel good, but by helping the other person to feel good in order that we can feel good. In plain words, to become a giver rather than a taker. And so every marriage looks upon the other person as having the obligation to make us feel good. And if they don't do that, guess what we start doing? Our wandering minds go look around for somebody else who will do this. And there goes the divorce rate. What is it now? 60%? Something like that? Even higher? And we just keep changing partners if we don't recognize that the problem is not the partner, the problem is us. Or as Pogo said, and for all of you over 70, you know who Pogo is. Pogo said, "We have met the enemy, and it's us. We are the enemy." And the marriage will therefore have within it a form of antagonism as each one tries to be able to accomplish a state of peace and wants it first before being able to give it to the other. You can see that we do not have the awareness of the kingdom of God in this kind of a relationship, nor love the Lord thy God, the other, because it is the other. We don't feel it outside of ourselves when we want to be the original creator with all of your might, all your soul, all your mind, all your strength. You don't have it. And so the marriage reflects this as well, that we're incomplete and bringing an incompleteness into the marriage, which will now become the ground on which the two partners are going to have to be able to straighten out a giving relationship rather than a taking one, or else submit to others taking you, and that you would want to desire to please them in their taking, because you'll sell out in any way to feel that you're wanted by somebody, including unfair and unreasonable relationships which are less painful to you than that feeling of aloneness. And you see how people will tolerate abuse within the relationships, because at least the abuse has the other still in it. And because we feel so down on ourselves, we don't feel entitled to more than abuse. And so in comes abusive aspects into it. What's the solution? The solution is we're going to have to give over the spousal relationship to God. The human mind is a taker. It is not a giver. And either we build up a great amount of marriage relationships in order to be able to keep finding the solution to the problem, which is outside of ourselves. It ain't us, it's outside, as a solution to the problem, or continue in a relationship which can be very, very destructive because of the potential violence that's in it. It's violent to demand of another person to be something to accommodate ourselves. It's a form of violence. Or that we turn on ourselves and we crumble to the negative feelings we have about ourselves in order to be able to accommodate ourselves that we deserve this negative existence that the other puts upon us in order for them to solve their own problems. not easy. But we'll go further with this problem in the next episode.